Every year, indie games are becoming a larger and larger part of the pie of the games that I'm playing. Several years ago, I was only playing a few a year, then it was 5, a dozen, and now a couple dozen. These games are getting bigger in scope and general publicity and awareness, as well as it becoming more and more common for these games to win awards at large-scale award shows like the Game Awards. That being said, there are still tons of Steam-only, smaller games that a lot of people have not heard of as well. Today, I want to talk about 23 great indie games that I played in 2025. I rolled credits in most of these. Some I only got a few hours in before dropping for one reason or another, but either way, every game I mention in this video is one that I enjoyed. Also, quick disclaimer, I know the definition of what indie means in games seems to be different for everyone, some having more strict rules of what is truly indie, I get that, but in this video, I'm just kind of going off of a feel, and there will be a range of, the few big hitters that lots of people have heard of, and then those smaller games that don't have as big of a spotlight. Also, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into super deep detail on every single one of these games. I'm going to aim to be about a minute or so for each, otherwise this video will be 5 hours long. Please leave a like on the video if you like it. Let's jump into the games. The first game I want to talk about is actually the first indie game that I played in 2025, Blade Chimera. This is a futuristic setting Metroidvania where you work for a corporation that hunts demons, because demons are evil, and you must kill them. Story's actually got some pretty cool twists and a decent amount of dialogue for Metroidvania, but I was actually welcomed that. I was enjoying the story. I liked the twists. I liked meeting some of the characters and getting to know them better. It's got solid movement, which you would want from Metroidvania, lots of good jumping and dashing and decent amount of platforming, tons of fun bosses, but nothing overly difficult, but tough enough to keep you engaged and challenged. Symphony of the Night inspiration is clear here, right down to the way the character moves, looking like Alucard. This is one that I feel like was getting some attention because it was coming out. It came out early in the year. It came out in January. But I feel like because of that, once the year started picking up, this game kind of fell to the wayside. But it's very good. You should check it out. This next game is getting into a few games that I'm going to bundle up together called the loop games. Games where you're doing something to get a resource, to go get an upgrade, to get better at getting that resource. And the game that I think that shows that the best, and one that I feel like got some good attention this year because it was kind of a meme, is a game about digging a hole. It is exactly what it sounds like. You are in a backyard. It is a game about digging a hole in your backyard. You just have a shovel, you dig down, you get some materials, you go sell them in a computer back in your garage, you upgrade your shovel to, eventually a drill, and then you get a jetpack and you go deeper in the hole. It is a short game. It's a very fun and sticky game. And it's something you can beat in a sitting if you really want to. But it is very fun. It's got a good loop to it. A game about digging a hole. Check it out. Cheap, fun, quick. Can recommend. The next of these loop games is Spilled. Much like a game about digging a hole, Spilled is a game where you are collecting a resource and you're selling it to get better at getting that resource. But in this game, it's with a very pretty pixel artwork. So you are a boat and you're cleaning up trash and debris and oil spills in water. And it is very calming. It's got some great music. And it kind of has that power wash simulator feeling of satisfaction where you're getting the nice cleaning up satisfaction, and you're also getting that fun loop satisfaction of upgrading your little boat as you clean things up. Great loop. Also a game you can beat in a sitting if you want to. I think this has a little bit more, with the music and the pretty art style to just really enjoy visually. But yeah, check out Spilled. Highly recommend. The last of these loop games is one that I think will be a little bit harder to access because this game I played on the Playdate. This is Dig Dino. It's part of the Playdate Season 2 series of games. So as far as I know, you've got to play this game on an actual Playdate. This game is, imagine Pokemon Gen 4 fossil mining turned into one of these loop games. You are doing, you're going to a dig site and you're clicking on squares. And when you click on the square, it uncovers what's underneath. You have a certain amount of clicks in one run. So you got to be careful about like where you're clicking, what you're trying to dig up. and you dig up fossils, you dig up weird artifacts, you get upgrades, you get better at digging stuff up. Pretty low stakes game, but it's really fun just to have in your pocket because the playdate is so small. I do have one, downside. I feel like the game didn't use the crank really at all. Very minimal in the crank usage, which I think is the playdate's biggest selling point. So this game really could just be, D-pad, buttons, played on anything. But nonetheless, it was very charming. Lots of fun, like looking back at your artifacts that you collected. Solid game if you get a playdate. Season 2, can't recommend this one enough. Next up, let's get into a couple of the RPGs I played this year on the indie side. Starting off with the Sea of Stars free DLC, Throes of the Watchmaker. If you've already got Sea of Stars, and if you like Sea of Stars, I cannot recommend Throes of the Watchmaker enough. This is some of the best content in the game, in my opinion. It'll take you about 8-10 hours to finish it. So it's got really good pacing because it's a shorter experience. So you're constantly getting upgrades, constantly making progression. It does a good job of, this is a separate story to the main story. So your characters are basically reset. So it's a fun little reset. It kind of changes the way the characters play. Gives them new abilities to unlock and to play with. It's still got that great timing-based combat system with some fun new abilities that really push it over the top. So yeah, if you like Sea of Stars, this is a no-brainer to me. Some of the best content in that game. Dark Deity 1 was a game I played on my Switch a couple years ago. It is a Fire Emblem-inspired RPG, and while I liked the game, it had some flaws, and it was a little hard to recommend to others. But Dark Deity 2, its sequel that came out this year, is an easy recommend if you like Fire Emblem. This game is much improved over its predecessor, in my opinion. Better art, better maps, less bugs overall. Really enjoyed this game. It is a good, in my opinion, a good stopgap between, these bigger, actual Nintendo released Fire Emblem games. I think this game stands up there with those games. Really, a pretty engaging story, solid progression. This game is really about making your characters completely absurdly broken, which I think is fun up until a point. When you get to the end game and everyone's broken, you're just deleting everything, and you're not getting those, the dopamine from the actual progression, making your characters at that point. It starts to get a little old, but overall, Dark Deity 2 is a really solid Fire Emblem-like. If you like Fire Emblem and you're looking for a little bit of that on the indie side, Dark Deity 2's got you covered. Sword of the Sea is a game I don't know why I would have played if it wasn't on PlayStation Plus. Not to say the game isn't good, but it is a little pricey. But if you got PlayStation Plus Extra, this game is included in that. And if you got PlayStation Plus Extra, you should play Sword of the Sea. This game is short and sweet, but it's got a great vibe. Very pretty. This game's about bringing the water back to this land that has been overtaken by the sands. So you're going through these sandy deserts and you're bringing back the water, and it's always so cool to see that water flow back into these areas. A very, very nice vibe. It's got some decent platforming as well on top of that. Not really a super challenging game. This is a low stakes, relax, enjoy the great music, enjoy the pretty visuals, and enjoy the satisfaction of bringing back the life to this, dead, deserty, sandy area. Like I said, it's a little pricey in my opinion, but if you got PlayStation Plus Extra, or if you find it on a good sale, you should check it out. These next several games are the last of the shorter, really budget-friendly games that are mostly on Steam. Up first is one of the most silly games on this list, Unfair Flips. This game is literally you just flip a coin, mostly in silence until you win. That's the game. So you got to flip a coin and get heads 10 times in a row, which sounds impossible, and it is impossible basically because the coin isn't even a 50-50 odds. It is unfair flips. You got like a 20% chance to land heads. So the way it works though is when you do get heads, you get a little bit of money, and with that money, you buy upgrades to increase your odds of getting heads or increase the amount of money you get for getting heads and the multiplier you get for getting heads in a row. So basically this is kind of like another one of those loop games, but it's more of a clicker game. You're just clicking the button until you get heads 10 times in a row, and there's really no more to talk about it than that. That's the game, and it's actually kind of fun. This game is one that I think might be the only one on the list that I wouldn't recommend to everybody. This is And Roger. While it is a very pretty visually, and it's got a really well-written story, it's also a deeply emotional game that deals with some stuff that might be hard for people to experience. Deals with a character who has, dealing with Alzheimer's dementia, and this game is gamifying that in a pretty respectful and a fun way, I would say, to kind of put you through that experience of like what it would be like to have someone in your life dealing with that. This is a game I think you should play in one sitting. It's another hour-long experience. But yeah, I do think it might be a little bit much for some people, but if it sounds like something that interests you or that you would like to experience, it is a very well done, very pretty game. I have never been one to play point-and-click adventure games. They're games that mostly just frustrate me or make me feel like I'm too dumb to progress. But I was recommended Poco by a friend, and I didn't feel any of those negative feelings for this game. This is a free game on Steam. You can actually leave a tip to the developers if you choose, but it is a free game on Steam where you play as Poco, the very tiny clown, trying to get back to the circus that you were kicked out of. Really funny game. One of those games that actually makes me laugh, audibly, not just kind of a little chuckle, but I actually laughed at this game. Surprisingly good music. Very charming in the puzzles you're solving, and they're pretty intuitive. It makes you feel, gives you that little dopamine, like, oh, I'm smart, I solved this, but it's never like super difficult. I never felt stuck in this game. But really good. I played this on the Steam Deck, and you can tap the screen or use a mouse, whatever you want, but it's very good. You should check out Poco, and maybe go ahead and leave a tip to those developers. Of all the games on this list, I think this is the one I played for the shortest amount of time, because I think it is overall the shortest game, just to roll credits. It is the Dark Queen of Mortholme. So this game is kind of a gimmick. It's a neat idea for a game, but basically you are playing as the last boss in a roguelite. So you are the Dark Queen of Mortholme, and the hero of the game shows up to try to beat you, and you quickly stomp him, kill him. But then the hero shows back up, and as you go, you have these back and forth dialogues with the hero that you would expect if you are like playing a roguelite, but you are the last boss. So in this character, as they're going through their journey, they're getting better at the game, getting upgrades, and it's becoming more difficult for you to kill the hero. So it's a cool idea, but once I kind of got over the gimmick, there's not a whole lot left to keep me invested. It's a pretty simple game. You have a few attacks, you move around. If anything, I feel like the actual gameplay feels a little clunky. So I wasn't like, it's not a game that I would want to play for any longer than it actually lasts. But I do think it was a really fun experience and a really neat idea for a game. All right, we're now getting into a chunk of games that I think may have been lost in the shuffle of the Switch 2 launch. These are games that are all very good, but came out alongside of other big hitters, like Donkey Kong or Mario Kart early on in the Switch 2's life cycle. I've reviewed a couple of these games, and the first one is one I did review. It is Ruffy in the Riverside. This game has, the most notable thing about it is its great art style. The main character, looks like something out of a Paper Mario game. You are Ruffy, and you're like, I believe you're a bear. And this is a 3D platforming collectathon. It's got some pretty funny writing. It feels really good to move around. You have some really good speed and momentum and jumping. And it's like kind of like a Banjo-Kazooie. There's lots of random things around the map that you need to either puzzle solving or just platforming, helping characters out. You have a material copy ability where you can look at a material and kind of take in, like, whether it's metal or stone or wood, and you can paste that material onto something else in the world to solve a puzzle. So that is really what you're getting here. You're getting good 3D platforming and then some decent puzzle solving with the material change mechanic. Not super long game. I did 100% it, and I think it is a fun game to beat. Maybe not a fun game to 100%. Another early Switch 2 game that I reviewed was Fast Fusion. This is one of the several racing games that was in the Switch 2 launch window. This is a futuristic sci-fi, sci-fi racer that I think is almost like a really good tech demo for the Switch 2. This game runs at 4K 60, a lot going on. It moves really fast while still looking very pretty. I think the racing is tough because of how fast it is, and it does challenge you. You have a jump button, which is not super typical for a racer, but it makes you feel really good when you avoid all the obstacles and you don't explode, and you actually do complete a lap going very fast and not blowing up. I do think the fusion mechanic, which is kind of the hook of the game, was not fantastically implemented. I was able to get what I consider the best vehicle in the game very quickly, and it made me not want to go back and fuse with other vehicles because I feel like I already had the best one, so I didn't feel a need to fuse with other ones. But this is a pretty affordable game. I think you'll get your time's worth out of it. Fast Fusion. This next game is actually the first game on the list that I did not finish, and maybe the most evident of the got swallowed by the Switch 2 launch thing on the list, and that is Pipistrello and the Cursed Yoyo. You play as Pipit, a member of the Pipistrello family, and you have a yo-yo. And this yo-yo is the big hook of the game. You can throw it, and it has some really satisfying bounce mechanics, where you can bounce it off of the angled walls to solve puzzles or to hit enemies and make everything explode. Very satisfying, very fun. It's also got a really cool mechanic with the way you get upgrades. There's a badge system in this game, and when you buy one of these badges, you don't just get the upgrade for it, or the pro side of it. You also get a negative downside of it, and you go into debt. So basically, until you wear this upgrade and you get a certain amount of the currency to pay off that debt, you're going to be having some sort of burden that makes it worse for you. But actually, I think it's fun because it never makes you feel too overpowered. You always feel like something's weighing you down. But it is very satisfying when you do get that upgrade and you don't have that thing weighing you down anymore. This is a game I want to go back to. I played the first big chunk of the game. It was very fun. It's got some nice, big, chunky sprites that I think look really good. It's one of the games I feel the most guilty about not finishing. Next up on the sadly I didn't finish list is Astral Throne. This is a roguelite Fire Emblem game. It's almost like a roguelite Fire Emblem cross Oregon Trail. Basically, you're playing Fire Emblem in these like a PS1 aesthetic. With you choose a character at the start. You're playing through their story with them as the main character. The story's not super important in my experience, but you play a map, then you go into an overworld where it kind of reminds me of the Oregon Trail side of things, where you're weighing your risk of going to certain places for certain rewards, and then you keep playing through different Fire Emblem maps. I thought it was really, really fun, and I was really enjoying the hook of the game, but the reason I didn't go back is because I made it very late into the game, and then I died, and then, it is a roguelite, so you go back to the beginning and try again, and I was just so heartbroken that I lost so late that I put the game down, and I just haven't found the time to go back to it. I do want to eventually go back to it, because I am sad I didn't beat it, and I am sad I was so close. But yeah, Astral Throne, really cool idea. If you like Fire Emblem and you are a masochist and you love roguelites, check it out. All right, this is the last game on the list that I put down for one reason or another, and it's the first game of the list on what I'm going to call like the big six, the big indie games that won a bunch of awards and I feel like got a lot of attention. I'm not going to dwell on these as much because I feel like a lot of people have already heard of them. But first up is Blueprints. Blueprints is a first-person puzzle game where you are in a mansion trying to make it to the 46th room of a 45-room mansion. So this is, I'm not going to talk about too much of what the game is, because I feel like it's a good experience to learn on your own, but you're going through this mansion just looking for clues on how to progress. And anything and everything can be a clue. You really have to take notes. I really enjoyed, I was playing this game alongside a spreadsheet that I was making where I was typing notes and I was pinning up screenshots of the game while I was playing. And that was a really enjoyable thing for me. And making the notes was almost as fun as playing the game. You're limited on the amount of steps you can take each day. So you're going to get your hints, get your notes for a day. and then you're going to end the day, and then the house is going to reshuffle. So you have to take what you learned from one day into the next day to get even further into the house. Really cool idea. I haven't quite finished it. I got to the point in the game where I know what I need to do. I just haven't got a run together to quite do it. I just need to sit down one day for a couple hours and knock it out. But it's a fantastic game. And keep in mind, you do have to take your own notes. This isn't a game where you can just have the game, log it for you. You need to be ready to have a journal alongside. But if you want to do that, great experience. Let's go ahead and knock out the biggest game of the year, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I know some people will say this isn't an indie game, or well, yeah, it is. I'm going to go ahead and include it. Felt indie enough to me, but I'm not going to dwell on it. Everyone, if you've watched this video, you've probably heard of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It's got great music. It's got really good timing-based, turn-based combat. Story, I thought was very good. Lots of deep emotional hooks. There are some problems I have with the story, but overall I thought it was great. Yeah, if you're watching this video, you've probably heard of and or already played Clair Obscur Expedition 33, but I would be remiss if I did not mention it. Next up, we've got Hollow Knight Silksong, a game that would have been my game of the year if Clair Obscur didn't exist. Silksong, if you liked Hollow Knight, you'll probably like Silksong. It's more of Hollow Knight. I do think one of the bigger complaints about this game is it doesn't hold your hand at all. It almost expects that you have played and beaten Hollow Knight to really jump into Silksong. This game is tough right from the start, but I loved it. I loved exploring the map. Really fun, looping back in on itself. The map design was constantly surprising me. Great bosses, great progression. Artwork and the music, fantastic. This was a game I put 60 hours in. It might actually be a little bit too big for its own good, but if you're willing to accept what it's giving you and take all of it, it's a fantastic experience. One of the breakout hits of the year is a game that is kind of like Breakout. Ball Pit is a brick breaker game where you are destroying these waves of monsters that are working their way down towards you by throwing balls off the walls and making them explode before they can get to you. The big hook is you are going to get all these different kinds of balls that have different effects, different elemental properties, different, like you got lasers and you got earthquakes and you got poison and you're going to mix these things together to make even more crazy, unholy monstrosities of attacks. This game is super sticky. The runs are about 15 minutes long, and you really just want to jump back in there once you finish one. There's a fun little farming and town building minigame in between to break up that action and kind of build into the meta progression. Ball Pit was a surprise hit for me. This game ended up being in my top 5 for the year, and I was not expecting that at all when I started playing it. Dispatch is a game that you could enjoy without even really being a game. If you want to make this just a TV show, you can turn off all the QTEs and just make some decisions and watch the game. This is a game reminiscent of the Telltale games of old. I believe this is made by some old Telltale developers. This is a kind of a crude adult superhero story where you are a dispatcher. You are telling these superheroes where to go in the world, where to fight crime in the city you're in. Got a really good story, lots of great character interactions, and getting to know all these characters and making decisions on how you want to interact with them that changes the story. This is a game, when I downloaded it, I played the first 7 chapters of 8 all in one sitting, and then I played the next one the next morning. This was an episodic release. I played it after it was already all out, and I just kind of binged it. But yeah, I cannot wait for, I'm assuming there'll be a season 2 of this game. Super fun. I don't think the vulgarity and the adultness of it is a downside. I don't think it is too, I don't think the graphicness of it is a negative. I think it actually is pretty well done to increase the story and make you get some good laughs that don't feel too cheap. But yeah, Dispatch is fantastic. The last of the really big games is actually the first of 3 games that I am currently still playing and working my way through. That's Hades 2. Hades 2 is, in my opinion, a lot like Hades 1 so far, and I loved Hades 1. It is really living up to that quality that I fell in love with from the first Hades game. talking to all these, Greek gods of Olympus. Fantastic game. Some of the best gameplay, period. In a roguelite, you're constantly feeling like you're building this run of like crazy upgrades, but you're still feeling pushback on these bosses. And when you lose, you're not even really upset that you lost, because you get to go back and talk to all the characters in the hub area again, and do your little incremental upgrades to give another run. I have made it to what I believe is the last boss in this game. I just haven't quite beaten it yet, but I cannot wait to jump back in there and keep playing. Hades 2, just as good, if not better than Hades 1. The last Metroidvania on this list is one that I feel like didn't quite get the attention it deserved last year, and that is Constance. This is a 2D hand-drawn Metroidvania, very pretty game where you are playing in the mind of a character who is experiencing burnout from, I believe, their personal life and their work life, and you're just inside the embodiment of that in that person's head. This game has some really solid platforming. Like Silksong, it is a game that has, it's a Metroidvania with bosses and combat, but I feel like the bosses lean more into the platforming than the combat side of things. There is, an attack button where you're hitting the bosses, but mainly you are worried about dodging their attacks and using your platforming to get yourself into a position to hit these bosses with your attack. Very fun game, something that I wish I could spend a little bit more time in. I'm about halfway through it, and I really need to sit down and knock it out, because every time I play this game, it's so enjoyable, and I really think that it needs more attention. That it kind of gets overshadowed by something like a Silksong, but this is a more palatable experience. It's a little bit more accessible of an experience. There are some good features to tone the difficulty down if it is too much for you. And it's just so lovely and got great platforming. I cannot recommend it enough. The last game on the list is my current obsession. This is the game I chose to make the thumbnail for this video. It is Kingdoms of the Dump. Kingdoms of the Dump is a throwback to the SNES era JRPGs, and it wears all those inspirations on its sleeve. This game, you are playing in a trash world, and it does lots of little clever jokes and nods about the fact that you are in a trash world, playing on genre tropes. You are Dustin Binsley. You are a trash can, and it's really funny. All the different little things it does, all the little jokes it makes. This game is made by janitors, people who are janitors in real life, and I've gotten lots of fun chuckles in the world building and the item descriptions and stuff like that. I do worry that maybe this will kind of wear on me by the end, that this, I'm about 10 hours in and I'm still finding it funny, but I wonder if, 20 hours into this 25-hour RPG, if I'll start to get a little tired of it. But right now, it's all working for me. The combat is, typical turn-based stuff, but it does have time-based mechanics where, think of your Paper Marios, where you tap a button at a certain time to do certain things. And then your specials have different interactions as well with your special attacks, on how you'll have to time things or, hit the enemies. This game also has a grid system, so you move around a grid. Basically, if you're closer to the enemy, you do more damage. If you're further away from the enemy, you do less damage. But also, there can be obstacles the enemy can drop on the ground, or you can drop obstacles on the enemy side. Things like dropping an oil slick on the ground and then lighting that oil on fire to do more damage to the enemy. So yeah, the combat's really solid progression outside of the game with exploring and getting upgrades, equipment upgrades, stuff like that. It's really, really good, and it's got a fun overworld with a fantastic overworld theme. If you like, 16-bit SNES era JRPGs, Kings of the Dump, currently on Steam, I think you'll love it. Check it out. So there we have it. That is 23 great indie games from 2025. I wish I could talk a little bit more about each of these games, a little more structured view. Several of these games I've talked about on other videos, whether it be a full review or in my videos I make at the end of every month with my favorite games I played each month. So yeah, if you want a little bit more in-depth of my opinions on each of these games, check out some of those other videos. But I hope the bite-sized, minute-long things maybe swayed somebody to check out one of these games. I think they're all worthy of attention. I think you should support indie games. Indie games are going to keep being a bigger thing, bigger part of the industry as it is. And I think you need to get on board playing indie games because they're going to be a lot of the options you have going forward with how long some of these bigger games are taking to develop, and with all the churn in the industry with layoffs and all these big corporations not wanting to make single player games these days, it feels like. But yeah, if you like this video, give a like. If you want to see me talk about more videos in the future, more games in the future, feel free to subscribe. If you have other indie games recommendations, I would love to hear them in the comments. Games that you've played or you want to play or you think I would enjoy, please leave them in the comments and I will look into them. So, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.